Welcome to World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss, the podcast for busy professionals who want to plan unforgettable trips without the stress. If you're craving adventure, relaxation, or cultural immersion, but feel overwhelmed where to start, this is the show for you. Each week, we dive into travel tips, expert strategies, and actionable advice to help you save time, money, and hassle while helping you design your dream trip. From group getaways to romantic escapes to adventure packed journeys and budget friendly tips, we cover it all. I'm Ross, your host and travel enthusiast, with over a decade of experience balancing a demanding career while also planning trips to over 25 cities in Europe, all over the US, Central America, the Caribbean, and beyond. I've mastered the art of stress free planning, and I'm here to help you do the same. If you love what you hear, don't forget to follow the show, leave us a review, as well as share it with a fellow traveler. I want to make your next adventure the easiest and most memorable yet. Now, on with the show. Welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss. I'm your host, Ross Alcorn, and today I'm excited to have on a six-time Amazon best-selling author, three-time TEDx speaker, and former full-time lawyer turned into full-time travel content creator here to drop a ton of value for you, Jen Ruiz. How's it going today, Jen?
It's going great, Ross. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm coming off as a recording, coming off our long trek back from our honeymoon from Bali to Atlanta, but we're here and I'm very excited for this episode. So thanks for joining today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, Jen, before we dive in, I don't like to sell my guests short. I know I mentioned a few things and highlights, but if you don't mind just giving the audience a little bit of background about yourself, and how you got into the travel industry.
Well, you did a great job, Ross, definitely summing up the main points there. But I used to practice law, like you mentioned, and then the year before my 30th birthday, I realized that I had gone through my 20s and I had just worked. I had just done what was required of me and what I thought was the right path to follow. And so, with that time, now almost up of my 20s, right? Like one way or another, I'm going to be out of my 20s at the end of this year forever. I think that put a whole lot of pressure on me to do something fun, to do something for me, to do something that would be memorable. So I set out to take one trip a month while I was still employed full time. And that kept me busy figuring out how I was going to afford this, taking on a second job, teaching English online, figuring out points and miles so I could fly to some of these places for much less. And travel credit cards, learning all about this world. And at the end of the year, I ended up taking 20 trips, almost double my goal, and having run out of PTO and having had now at this point a steady job, somewhat, for the most part, teaching English online remotely that I could use as a crutch while I transitioned to doing this full time. I left my job in April 2018, and now I've been doing this full time for the last 7 years.
That's amazing. It's an inspiring story, and for people who are watching online, you can see the book in the background that she has 12 trips in 12 months, which she wrote obviously after that. So I that's amazing, and I love that. I mean that's one of the my favorite parts about helping teach people about travel is a lot of the times you hear people say, "Oh, I'll do it when I'm retired. I'll do it later." And then that later, I've heard many just bad stories where that later doesn't come. You work all your life and then you get to that point and then you're past your healthiest years where you can go enjoy a lot of these places. So that really resonates with me and something I always try to tell just friends, family, people that I talk to, podcast get, people who listen in. So I love that. And it truly relates because the audience that listens are busy professionals. And a lot of the times they think they don't have the time, the money, and at the end of the day, travel is really what they need. So excited to have you on. And I know you're gonna speak directly to the listeners who are tuning in.
I hope so.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I always like to ask this question because a lot of the times it's when you start to travel, sometimes there's things from your childhood, early life, that have an impact over time. So I would love to just hear a little bit about, was there anything in your childhood, or just earlier in your life prior to becoming a lawyer that inspired you to just have that itch to travel?
Yes, so my mom was a teacher, and even though we couldn't do extravagant vacations, I grew up in Philadelphia, so we would vacation in the state. We would do things like go to Amish country where you can find the best ice cream that you will ever have in your entire life because they milk the cow that morning, they are hand churning the ice cream, like it is amazing, and it's how ice cream is meant to be. And so, I found joy and excitement over things that I think a lot of people maybe overlook. We went to the Frank Lloyd Wright Falling Water House. And I thought it was really cool, even as a kid, to be like, wow, this man built a house that has a waterfall flowing through it. Like, that's pretty awesome. Like, we don't have a waterfall in our house. And so, from a young age, I was able to see that all of these destinations have something worthwhile to offer. And my mom, was very overprotective and never sent us to summer camp. She made her own summer camp at home, and that would include going to museums and going to, getting Egyptian hieroglyphics kits, like lots of different things like that. And so all of that really opened me education wise, because I think that was the funnel, right? My mom being an educator and wanting to open my mind to things, but also just me seeing how many great things there were to experience without needing to go far. And I think that's what's helped me now in my career, because maybe I'll go to a destination that, isn't as glamorous. Like everybody gets excited if I say I'm going to Egypt or Japan. But if I say I'm going to, Chickasaw Country, Oklahoma, people are like, oh. And I love that challenge of being able to show them, hey, look at this amazing, first American artists that are here painting these really impactful pieces, quilting these amazing pieces. Look at this like great nature trails that we have that date back to the early 1900s, like really unique aspects of the trail and federal parks that have been put in. Like there's so many cool things anywhere you go. And I think that that's what I try to share with people now as a travel content creator, a travel entrepreneur, a travel storyteller, really at my core. And I hope that that encourages people to not look at travel as something that's unattainable for them, because it's not something where you only have to go to Japan for it to count as a trip. You can start now, today, tomorrow, this weekend, and find something cool to do near you.
I love that. I feel like I was nodding my head the whole time you were talking, just because every point was spot on. And no, I agree. I think you mentioned a great point just around at the very end is making it attainable. I think everyone nowadays, social media is a blessing and a curse, right? Everything is very aspirational, but travel's overwhelming. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. So people may say, well, I want to go international, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of great things that might just be in your backyard. So take those small steps. And I've had a couple former guests who came on, one who specializes in Michigan, one who's the CEO of the Midwest Travel Network. And just some of the things that when you started mentioning when you lived in Philadelphia and you started those weekend trips, like that just made me think of those things because it is true. It's like sometimes you live somewhere and you may have not even been 30 minutes down the road to some of these amazing different destinations you've just thought, oh, I'd have to go here, and you haven't made those trips. So a lot of really good points, and it is attainable. And I think the biggest thing is, and I like asking that question because the majority of people, when they get started, they start at a young age, and then they start to build on those wins and those lessons learned. And like you said, your mom made your summer camps, which is very cool because you learned all those different things. And former guests have come on, have talked about sometimes they take their kids wherever they go, and if whether it's Europe, whether it's just they don't go to summer camp and they travel, and their kids learn a lot of different cultures because over time that's going to make them be more curious, most likely be an entrepreneur and do a lot of different cool things. So a lot of really good points there, and really enjoyed hearing that.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I can point to it way back. I think it's always been a part of me, and it's just really interesting to see that the things that we like and that light us up as children are really what we should be pursuing as adults. Like there's big hints there to how you can find your purpose, how you can really, what are the things that you used to spend hours doing as a kid, and because everybody's different. And for me, it was very much that, like planning, researching projects, writing. Like I could do that for hours. And so I think for anybody else who's trying to figure out, what is it for me? I think that's a good starting point.
So how did that, no, very interesting. How did that lead you to then want to be a lawyer?
I was very vocal. So I've always enjoyed public speaking. I was and I've always enjoyed politics. I was president of my elementary school. In fourth grade, I beat out the fifth grader for the election. And so I used gumballs, and that was part of how I bribed everybody, because gum was like technically not illegal, but also technically not like allowed, but they banned it clearly after me, but it was too late. I got the support of the whole playground, and I won president. And that was at a school where we had a micro society. So we actually had like jobs that we would go and do at the end of the school day from like 2 to 4 p.m. or whatever, the last 2 hours of the day. So in addition to my role as president, I was a news reporter. And so also from very early on, I enjoyed storytelling, news reporting, which I feel is what we do now basically as an influencer, where this world of media has been opened up to anybody, not just the one travel writer that you have on staff at that one print outlet in that one big city, right? Now you have anybody that has their phone and access, people are watching YouTube on their TVs like any other channel. So people really have that ability to present themselves and their ideas in a massive scale.
That's okay. That's interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. But I wonder, so do you put that on your resume? The fourth grade president of the elementary school? I feel like that's something that's got to be in your resume, LinkedIn, bio, everything.
I probably should, but I'm not gonna lie, Ross. I'm gonna say this in the most humble way I can, but I have a pretty cool resume and it gets pretty packed already. So
Yeah, no, that might be at the bottom. Just and then that way when people reach out to you, you're like, okay, they actually read this and that like you probably get reached out to a lot by people. So that's something that sets them apart.
the fun facts. No, I agree. I think that's a great fun facts section for conversation starters. That's a good tip.
For sure.
It's been hard. I've actually had a hard time letting go of the law stuff on my resume. I did so last year finally. I was holding on to something like my very last like law firm position at the very end. Because there's a lot of emotion attached to that, especially when you work so hard to achieve a certain credential and you make a big career shift. So it was a part of my identity for so long, and I still feel, compelled to argue with TV shows about the law to be like, that's not how that works. That would never come in as evidence, and so that's never going to leave me. It's training that I have. But it did, yeah, just recently, because my resume was getting so crowded, because I was holding on to all these things from other years, that finally I was like, I'm gonna embrace just having a full content creator, entrepreneur resume. This is what I've been doing for the last 7 years. Just having my education on there shows I was a lawyer. Like I don't need to have a whole doctorate, but it was a big thing to let go of. So I think for anybody that feels like their identity is defined by any one thing that they've accomplished or any one goal that they've achieved or any one path that they've been walking, just know that it still can be a part of you and still can be a part of your story, but it can be leading you to a different place.
Yeah, no, very, very well said. And I'm in a similar position where I've been in software and medical device sales for 10 years and in the process of moving full time into this. And I mean that's what I did for 10 years. But I think the thing is people who are in those positions when, as I'm moving into this full time can relate because I know those same challenges. I know, right, all those pain points. I know what they're going through. And same thing for you. If someone comes across your profile and they're a lawyer, and they look and they see, oh, I can relate to Jen, right? She knows what I'm like. This is someone who moved from this to this. So those are people that you're most likely going to work with a lot. And I think it'd be good to hear because most, like you said, a lot of the time it's your identity. But as you went to school, right? You spent a lot of years, you got the degrees, right? That's a very, good paying job. And it's also a sought out and right, very status when you can say that. What was your biggest fear, right? When you went through all that work, you're gonna make that change. Like what was that biggest fear? And then how did you overcome it when you made the move?
I think it's still a constant fear, and you just had to learn to become comfortable with it. So I hate to burst anyone's bubble and say that at some point in time, you're just like, cool, I have made it. Like it does not work that way. So I think you have a fear that like anything that you've built at any point in time could be taken away, because that's honestly the nature of just all work. I feel like people have a false sense of security when it comes to a 9 to 5, and then there's mass layoffs. A lot of things that we've seen now with mass layoffs of people in government careers that they thought were going to be stable. So I feel like you it's an illusion of stability to have a job that pays you a steady paycheck. And when you are an entrepreneur, you're already used to not having that stability because you know that things are coming in from a lot of different income streams and everything has their ebbs and flows because that's how business works. And so you have to anticipate that, build your business, do trial and error and figure out how do you manage so that you can patch, slow periods in one income stream with high periods in another and make this amazing business for yourself, right? At least as an individual creator, not somebody with a brick and mortar or a set product or anything like that, as a creative entrepreneur. And so I mean, I just think that it's something that is very much possible and anybody can do it, as I mentioned, but you really do have to be okay with that instability. So it's not a fear that ever goes away. And it's not anything where, I think actually even maybe the bigger you get, the worse the fear gets, because then there's more on the line. When you have nobody watching, you can post up crazy videos, you don't care, let's see what happens, right? When you have more people watching, when you've had videos consistently go viral, now you have all this pressure to continue performing, to
Mhm.
not get canceled, like so many things. And so I don't think that that's ever gonna go away. And I think that for people who really wanna do this, you need to be comfortable constantly shifting.
Yeah.
Like you need to be okay. Like I feel like I'm almost playing like a weird video game where like every time I step on a brick, like it gets taken out from underneath me and I have to jump to the next one. And I'm constantly jumping, right? Like TikTok's my biggest channel, was almost banned earlier this year. I built up my blog and monetized it. Google's core algorithm updates and AI are, burying blogs on page 10 of Google search results now. Like everything is constantly in flux. And so what else can you do except jump to the next brick? And I think the longer that you stay there in the period of inactivity or freezing, like as the floor is giving out underneath you, like that's game over, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not gonna work out really well for you. So just keep moving and don't worry about who's copying you, don't worry about who's coming behind you, don't worry about, what things are being done or who's doing what better. Like don't worry about any of that. Don't worry about if AI is taking your job. Like you just gotta be learning how to use AI to your benefit. Like you
Yeah.
have to keep moving. Like
Yeah.
you have to just keep moving forward. And if you are somebody who is okay accepting that that is always going to be your state, and that doesn't mean that you're lacking security. If anything, it can mean that you have more security than other people who are not used to that kind of turmoil and don't have multiple income streams to cushion themselves. So it's a crazy life, but if you're committed to it, it can actually be a really freeing experience. It can make you feel like you have more power, right? Rather than just being a victim of your circumstances.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer. I mean, you dove into so many good points, and I think the one thing is you're just constantly learning. I mean, you're learning so many different. I mean, obviously, you're really the founder, the CEO, right? You're in, and if you have employees, you're helping outsource a lot of that. But you're constantly learning and staying up at the times and rolling with the punches. And that's what's, if you sit there and you complain about if there are Google updates, right? If there's this happen and you sit there and complain about it, well, someone else is going to be like, okay, I'm going to go do that. And it's like if
Exactly.
you're constantly doing that and you're not worried, I love what you said. You're not really worried about you're controlling what you can control, and you're not worried about what someone else is doing because they may not be doing something as good as you in this aspect, but maybe one other area. But at the end of the day, like I just said, like you're going to have your following who knows, likes, and trusts you, and they're going to be the ones who are constantly going to come back, and you're going to be that person that they know, like, and trust, and want to continue to follow. And those things that continue to happen, like they're going to be like, oh wow, okay, I'm continuing to learn too from Jen or Ross because they're putting their neck out on the line to go learn these new things, right? Try out these different things. So no, I love that answer, and we could talk more about that for a while because sometimes that gets me going.
Absolutely, yeah, I understand. I'm right there with you, right? You saw how fired up I got.
Yeah.
Because it's just something I think you have to have as an entrepreneur. It's like an inner drive that keeps you going even through the unknowns.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I luckily, even though I worked in corporate America for 10 plus years, every sales role that I was in was always a new team where it was like, hey, go hunt this new business. It's a red territory. You got to figure it out on the fly. And it was pretty much like your own little entrepreneur business that you were focusing in on. And it was fun. But I think what you said is once you started to have more and more success, there were more and more eyeballs, and you could still be very creative, but at the same time, there were more eyeballs and you had to make sure, right, you were putting out those type of things. So I think it's all relevant. You just have to continue to carry that mindset and be able to shift. And that is the fun part. I mean, you learn so much every single day, and you get to have great conversations like this.
It is. I really like it. I mean, obviously, I'm a nerd for learning, and that's been something I've always had. But I just really enjoy. I feel like it keeps your brain fresh. I feel like it's great to be up with the times. And again, it feels like it's my semblance of control. I can control how much I learn. I can control how quickly I adapt. I can control my attitude towards things. I can't necessarily control that the industry is changing. I can't, like, and it's changing every minute. Like, traditional media is not traditional media anymore. And so I just think the best you can do is keep betting on yourself, keep investing in yourself, keep learning more things, because it's never a bad investment of your time. Like, anybody who's listening to this podcast, anybody who's like trying to learn more of how they can do what is out there, I think that's always a good investment of time.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of the reasons I started this was 10 years ago after college. That's how I got all my information on investing, travel, business, entrepreneurship was podcast. If I'm walking, if I'm going to the gym, driving, it's like use that time to learn. And it's easy. And people are a lot of the times giving away that information. It's like, why not? And it just continues to connect the dots. And there's so much good information out there of how you can stay ahead. So well said. Well said.
Absolutely. I'll just second that I actually listened to podcasts before self-publishing. And that's how I was able to make my first self-published book a bestseller. And not a traditional book deal, but it was because I taught myself, I learned, and I was able to get success, right? I did just think that I'm gonna publish this book and it's gonna do well on its own. I understand that you need to have a strategy, you need to learn. And so podcasts were a huge part of it. And I would listen to them every single day when I got back from work or and any commute that I had, just to learn as much as I could. So I agree with that. There's so much free education out there. People are putting out their best content. So because like you said, once you know, like, and trust somebody, you're gonna want to work with them anyway. So I think really most people who are genuine are sharing a lot of legitimate value for free, because they know that people are gonna wanna trust them and wanna work with them more anyway. So they're not scared to share value. And there's so much information online that people are very generous with what they share. And
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, and I mean, it's awesome because, I mean, like this podcast and others, it's like sometimes you're like, I wish I had this when I started, so I didn't have to figure this out piece by piece, piecemealing it. Obviously, I wish AI was around 10 years ago. That would have made things a lot, would have made a lot of things a lot easier. But no, I couldn't agree more. That's cool. You'll have to share which podcast around when you were publishing for your book.
Yes, I'm trying to think, I know definitely Kindlepreneur was a really great resource for me. It's a great website. They have a calculator that helps you translate book rankings into sales per day, so you can get an idea of how many you need to rank on different categories. I'm sorry, this was now like 7 years ago, so they're a little bit, it's been a while since
Yeah,
I've
no,
listened to them, I
I don't mean to put you on the
apologize.
spot, but well,
But yes, but the big ones I feel, but definitely Kindlepreneur stays with me, just because I know he also has a website and YouTube channel and a lot of really great resources, as one example.
okay, cool. I'll have to check it out. I want to shift a little bit just to, because I know when we were talking, one thing you left, like you talked about at the beginning, you were in your 20s, you're like, hey, I'm about to be 30. I need to go travel, right? And I think the biggest thing that I see is being in the medical field, the healthcare field, high intensity sales roles. There's a big area of burnout. The sad thing is being in the healthcare field, the people who take care of us are usually the most burnt out people. So how do you feel really just travel overall helped your mental and just health and overall wellness? And are there any like pivotal moments or stories that you can share too?
I think travel always helps, so it's not even just on the trip itself, there's actually research that shows having a trip planned and anticipating it, like, releases joy in the time that you're, planning for it. Because now you're like, oh, I just booked this really cool reservation for this, dining in the sky, or I got us this great hotel room, like, you get excited about it. So it's really something where your joy over this trip could last over the period of several months and your anticipation of it, like your eager anticipation of it. I think in general, travel always is a great way just to get outside of your bubble. It's really easy for people in high stress situations to think this is what there is day in and day out, like every single day. This is what it is. And if you don't understand how high pressure it is, because you don't get it, because you're not in it, like, and I know because I've been in high pressure stuff my whole life. And so like it's like you don't understand, I'm taking the bar. You don't understand, I have like a dozen cases this week. You don't understand, like, and so it's always that of feeling like it's only your bubble that exists, and it's a bubble that no one else can relate to, and it's a bubble that's like slowly suffocating you. And so when you walk out of that and when you get somewhere else completely, physically transport yourself somewhere new, you have no choice but to be present in the moment, right? You're bombarded with, your body is going to react physiologically. Like your body is now in a new place, getting oriented to new sense, new sights, new sounds, like all of your senses are being bombarded. So you don't really have the ability to be super in your head the same way and be simultaneously processing everything that's happening in the moment. So you kind of have to be present in the moment, at least while you're like, I just got to the airport, I just landed in this place, like I just got here. Like you have to be there, you have to be present. And that's something that maybe we don't necessarily do when we're living our lives on autopilot. And you don't see beyond just your bubble. And so being able to be somewhere else and realize, especially in the US, which is such a high stress place where everybody is just like, like working themselves to death and politics and division everywhere. And so when you go somewhere else, you're like, oh, like other people in the world don't live like this. And like, oh, like there's other things going on. Like people aren't concerned about money, like nobody's suing people, like it's just not at all, like nobody even has guns. I remember when I was in Australia, I was shocked because I was like, what do you mean you don't have guns? What do your gangs fight with? And I was like, I could not understand because it was so foreign to me, right? I got to law school in Baltimore, like there's shootings all the time. Like, I mean, just so it was just something where your bubble is not the world. And it's so important to step outside of it and see that. And in so many ways, it'll help you be relieved to see,
Yeah.
wow, there is another way to do this. And at the same time, you will have that presence. You'll be out of your mind and actually into your body, enjoying and being in the moment, which can just in and of itself jar you out of your autopilot. And so I think it's really important. Even if and this all happens, you don't even have to be at a wellness retreat, like you don't have to be in a super calming nature spot, like this could all be happening for you in the middle of Bangkok.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I think that's the benefit of it.
Yeah, I mean that Bangkok traffic and the tuk-tuks might stress you out a little bit just watching them, but no, that's I mean that's a great answer. I love how passionate you are about it because I mean luckily for me, my parents had us traveling when we were younger. We got to get that experience, and that's always been a priority for me. It's if you plan it out in advance, you're always looking forward to something, right? Even if you have little trips, they don't have to be these like you said earlier, you don't have to go to Japan, you don't have to go to Thailand, it doesn't have to be this massive trip. If you take smaller trips and you do a couple, you have something to look forward to, and those are experiences, memories that you're going to create, and over time that'll compound and you'll realize, okay, like I'm not going to be, oh, I have leftover vacation days. That's one of the most things I hear is, oh, I'm too busy. Oh, I don't have like, I left over vacation days. I'm going to do a staycation where I'm still going to check my email. Or, oh, I'm afraid my boss, will get mad at me if I take off. Like you said earlier, people are replaceable. So it is, it is something that, and I've seen it firsthand. And that's one of the things I always try to just preach from the mountaintops is take the vacation. Like if your boss is going to be mad at you for taking the vacation, you should probably find a new job.
Yeah.
like you know what I mean? Like they should be promoting that because some of the things that come from from travel is you get creative, right? You start to see different cultures. Like you said, it's not so high strung. You can go to a cafe and walk around and just be in the moment and start to learn different things that you would not learn if you just stayed in the bubble and said, "Oh, I'm just going to go here." And maybe I'll take a trip. So no, it's such a great point, and I think it just goes back to that first question I asked you: is when you were a kid, you were constantly going and learning, getting all these different experiences, seeing kind of the outside of what probably a lot of people weren't. And that just started to build over time. And yeah, I mean, it's you definitely, I mean, just coming back from a trip, and as we're recording from a honeymoon, like, yeah, it's great. And there's a book that I'm reading while I was there. It's Stillness is Key by Ryan Holiday. And it's literally talks about all of that. And it is so valuable. So I always try to tell people go take the vacation because it's only going to help you. And you'll find out what you like, what you don't like, and about travel. And over time, that's really going to help you plan out those next trips.
Yeah, you'll never regret it. Doesn't matter if it's, too short, you don't need 2 weeks to go. I think a lot of people also postpone that, like, well, I only have a couple of days, it's not worth it. I want to wait until I have, the right time. You're in the US, if you're in the US, you're probably never gonna have that time.
Yeah. And but
So
it's even little micro breaks. There's a podcast that I listened to, My First Million, and there's a guy who he goes each year, and I love this because we always do bigger trips, we do weekend trips, but he's like each year, every 8 weeks, I do something different, right? Whether it's just going to hike, whether it's I go spend the day walking around a park, but he's like, after each year, I have eight cool, or no, more like not gonna do back nap math right now, but I'm gonna have 8 to 10 very cool different experiences outside of my travels that over time that's going to add up to 40 or 50 over 5 years. And it's like those are just different things that get you outside your comfort zone. And you're just going to do things that you may not have done that aren't these big trips that sometimes can be free or cost little money. So I think it's like just thinking about those little things, and that gets you away from the hustle and bustle. And you're going to start to think about cool, different ideas. And just, it always helps.
I couldn't agree more. That's definitely it right there. Just yeah, go on Facebook, check out what events are happening. I just finished signing up for an acrylic painting class because I had a canvas I brought back from Panama that had peeled on the flight, and so I was able to restore it. I could just find cool things around you. I went to a sandcastle festival here in Clearwater Beach, not too like last weekend. So there's a lot of really cool things going on all the time. I think Facebook events are a great way to do that. Your local, like dedicated niche blogs and websites, will like are great. Like here in St. Pete, we have like I Love St. Pete and things like that. So those are great creators to support, and they should have really helpful information in terms of like this is happening right now, brand new thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for people who, I mean, I think some people are like, oh, I might not go on Facebook. Oh, I don't have to go have that. A lot of the times there's Instagram that has those dedicated accounts and they're partnering with those local events. And I mean, that's how I find out about a bunch of stuff is just that type of stuff. And people will send them to you. So that's another great way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, is there anything, just one specific, is there any like one experience that you recommend? You've done a lot. So I don't know if there's any like one experience that you're like, this is something, if you want to go big or even you just want to do something, is there one experience you recommend people do?
I always, so whenever people ask me that, I try to narrow them down by category. So like if you know that you really like history, maybe you want to knock out some world wonders, right? The new world wonders, maybe you want to go to Machu Picchu or Petra in Jordan. If you know you really like luxury, you want to be somewhere really beautiful and fragrant, maybe you want to go to the south of France, go to the L'Occitane factory, take a perfume making class, like frolic in lavender fields. So it's really important when you're traveling. I think this is going to help for anybody who has nerves, who is hesitant about investing money into the trip, who doesn't want to take time off of work. It's going to help if you are excited about it. If you're somebody who's really big into movies, you can go to a film location. If I personally have gone to, I know she's problematic at the moment, and I'm so angry at her for being problematic and messing up my content, but I've gone to Harry Potter sites all over the world. And I wish she wasn't problematic. She's ruining my next book. Because it includes some of these sites that I've visited, like it's
Yeah.
what I've done. And so, but I think that's something something that I got really excited to, right? Like, I was really excited to ride the real life Hogwarts Express in Scotland. That was something that was difficult to get tickets to. It was something that was exciting for me because I liked the franchise and the series. I like, I'm not super into Lord of the Rings, but even I thought that Hobbiton in New Zealand was one of the most amazing places I've ever visited. And just like Middle Earth, so peaceful, so wonderful. And so I can imagine somebody who's into the series would be completely geeking out. And so I think it's important to pick what you like. And that's gonna help you. That excitement that you have, that inner like, oh, I really want to do this thing. In Japan, I went and ate cotton candy bigger than my face. That was the number one thing on my bucket list for Japan. And to ride around Tokyo in a onesie on a go-kart. Originally, my I wanted to ride around dressed like a princess, but they couldn't be Mario Kart because they had some infringement issues. So they had to go with monkey cart and then just have onesies. But here I was, like running around Tokyo with a onesie on my go-kart, going 40 miles an hour in the street, and everybody waving to you like you're in a parade. And that was so fun for me. Like
That's cool.
that moment was very worth it. So I think it's really personal to the person of what is it that makes you excited? What is it that makes you like downright giddy so that like you're practically running on that 12-hour flight or whatever the case may be, just because you're so excited to get there. And that's where you should start planning your trip.
I love that answer. It just goes back to what's most important to the person, and you're spot on. It's not what's the hottest thing on Instagram. You have to go do this. You have to go do that. And I think it goes back to just starting out small and seeing what you like, what you don't like, right? And then like you said, right? What's your budget? How much time do you have? And those things over time will compound. You'll start to learn, but it's really just getting started with those things and you'll start to learn. But would love to you talk about and you talk about solo travel for females. You obviously did it a lot. You're an expert there. But is there any actionable advice you have other than some of the great advice we've already given just for women who feel hesitant or anxious just about taking their first solo trip?
Yes, I always say rely on research. Research, knowledge is power, right? For most people, sometimes men, it sounds unsexy, like to have to plan out a trip to that extent. But honestly, if you are nervous, if you are a solo female traveler, you will feel better planning out your trip like down to the minute. I land at 6:30 p.m. There, if how am I getting from the airport to my hotel? What is the best transportation method in this particular city? Is it public transport that happens to have a train right there at the airport? If so, what times do those trains leave, right? Because am I getting there at a certain time where there's a train once every hour? And now I'm sitting here on the train platform with my luggage for an hour in a foreign country feeling super uncomfortable. Like these are all things that if you plan, you can avoid this. And so planning your things down to a minute. And here's when I arrive. Here's where I'm staying. Here's how I'm getting there. Here are the activities I have planned for these dates. Here are the tickets that I already bought ahead of time. So I don't have to stand in line for an hour when I get there in the heat or potentially miss it because it's sold out. Or, here are the unique opening hours during winter. I know somebody who went all the way to Athens and didn't get to see the Acropolis because they didn't realize that it had reduced winter hours. So you didn't get to enter, you just saw it from the outside. That's a major fail.
Oh
And
man.
so, like, that would never happen to me. It just wouldn't because I research like crazy at the very least. And that was when I was starting. Now I do it much less, but at the very least, I do that, right? My airport transfer, what are the opening hours for the things I want to see? What are the things that might require advanced reservations? There's some things you can't get reservations for willy-nilly. Like this particular really hot restaurant, the Anne Frank Museum, like there's so many things that require advanced planning. So I suggest that you research. And with that, when you land, you will feel so much more empowered because you're not on the street wandering, looking lost, asking people for help, like not sure what to do. Like you are a woman with a plan. And it's a fun plan that you're like, it's not like a tedious plan that you're like, oh, I have to. No, it's a plan you made.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
and and that you're excited to do it. It should have only things on there that make you really happy. You should be excited to wake up and go have that massive churro at that amazing shop that you've already scoped out, and then go to that really cool activity. Like you should be excited. You can plan in nap time. You should be excited for your afternoon nap when it's like really hot. You decide to take your siesta. So this is all like, I think that's your best way to, as a solo traveler for the first time. The only other thing I would add to that is it will be obviously a little bit easier if you pick somewhere that speaks English, so that you don't have an added language barrier, or whatever language you speak. I speak Spanish, so I'm comfortable going to Spanish-speaking destinations, but somewhere where you speak the language just helps, so that you're not adding translating on your first big solo trip abroad. I think your second trip, go for it.
I love that. I mean, it goes back to, I mean, it's always planning in advance, because stuff will happen. Regardless of, if you've done it for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, things are always going to go wrong. But if you have a good detailed plan, you can always, like we talked about earlier, you always can shift, you always can pivot. And if you have to miss one of the kind of nice to sees or nice to do's, right, you're going to have all of that time built in where you're going to get to see a lot of those big things, and you're not going to miss the Acropolis because of the reduced hours. And I was laughing when you were saying waiting in line in the heat, because whenever we see people, it's like, I'm buying the skip the line ticket. Like, if there's those must sees that I have to see, we're building that into the itinerary. And same thing with restaurants. It's like, if you're going all the way over and you're spending all this money, and this is maybe your one big vacation or two or whatever, put in the time and effort, because yeah, you're gonna want to enjoy it, and you want it to be not stressful. You want to enjoy your time there. And if you like to enjoy good food, like, it's just like the States where it's hard to get reservations. So do that in advance, and then that way, after that first trip, you realize, hey, this might have been too much of a packed itinerary, or hey, I like to do this, I'm going to take that out. And you're, like you said, now it's a lot less. I used to do the exact same thing. It's like down to the minute, especially when you're planning groups for six idiot guys in their 20s, you got to have it planned down to the minute. But now it's just a lot less. And then that way, if things do happen, or you want that buffer time, or you want to shift, you can, and you just outline those big things. And so, no, I couldn't agree more. No matter if it's solo female, whether it's you're going with a couple, whether you're going with a group, it's always helps to have a plan. And then you're going to realize over time, like, okay, we can make these shifts and pivots.
Absolutely, I agree.
Is there any, because I mean, you wrote the book, The Affordable Flight Guide. You've obviously given that TEDx talk about the power of flying solo, but are there any key strategies? The reason I'm asking this question is because I get asked all the time. It's like, well, how do I find really good flight deals? I'm trying to go on July 4th, and I'm trying to fly home on this date, right? I'm trying to go on the most busy times.
Mhm.
So we just want to understand a little bit more, right? Are there a couple key strategies that people can use just to maximize their budget and just travel more frequently?
If you have inflexibility with dates, if you know you have to be in Italy in July for a wedding on this time, there's very little you can do other than points and miles. Neighboring airports, so maybe, I'm here in Florida, so I would look at all possible flights from all major Florida airports to all airports in the vicinity of where I'm heading. Like, I mix and match all of them and pick the cheapest route. And maybe that means, and I would maybe even go, if I can find a nonstop somewhere to Europe and then I can connect to Italy from there, I would take the $100 nonstop to Europe, like that kind of thing, if you're super inflexible. If you're somebody who is just overwhelmed by the concept of having to figure all of this out, I think the first place to start and the easiest way to start to get flight deals is to sign up for flight alerts. So these are companies, they started, Scott's Cheap Flights was one of the first, he's now going. But it started with a guy who just looked for flight deals, and when he found one, sent them to his friends because they wanted to be on the list. It grew into this whole big business, and then multiple companies came seeing that this is a viable business model, and they started their flight alert programs. So I have a list of over 17 flight alert programs. Flight alert programs are people that are working there 24/7 looking for flight deals. When they find one, they send it to you. If you like it, you click to book it. It's the easiest way to get started, because the only thing you have to do is, I like it, I book it. That's it. So, and I think that that's, it's worthwhile. So it's just a matter of, it can be overwhelming. Different programs offer different things. Some are, specializing in business deals, some are specializing in international deals. So I think going is a solid one to start with, particularly because they have a free trial that you can, see what kind of deals you would get. Thrifty Traveler is another one. Travel Pirates, I think, is another one. And sorry, now I'm just blanking, but I have them all on my list. And these are all different alert programs that you can use. Max Flights is another one that's like more domestic. So there's a lot of different ones, depending on which one you want to be a part of. I recommend getting on the free trial for them, seeing which ones you like, seeing what kind of deals they have. Do not narrow it down to your neighborhood airports for the reasons that I mentioned, right? Because you might find a deal from somewhere else. I once saw a deal from Pittsburgh to Japan for $70. And I remember thinking, like, for that price, I can figure out how to get to Pittsburgh, like, no big deal. So don't necessarily limit yourself. See what deals are out there in New York, LA. These airports are gonna have the most deals. Dallas sometimes. These big hubs, Chicago, Vegas. Those are where you're gonna find the most deals because they have more flights going day in and day out. So they're just gonna be, more affordable than that one flight that's going
Yeah.
to, that one place. So, but I think that that's the easiest way to get started, flight alerts.
I love it. Yeah, I think, and also you can go check out Jen's book if you want. She wrote it to help people figure out right how to find those affordable flights. So we'll make
Yes.
sure to include that in the show notes. But yeah, that's one. I mean, and that's why I love having these conversations because I wish I knew that when I first started because it was like, oh, we got to fly out of here. Luckily, I lived in Dulles, so there were a lot of good flights. But then moving to Raleigh and then Charlotte, there are some good, but sometimes you have to take that positioning flight. And I think, especially internationally, the cost of flights are not like the States. It doesn't cost you $400 to fly from Charlotte to Ohio, right? It's going to be very, very, some of our flights in Thailand were $30, $40, right?
Yeah.
So they're not expensive. I think it's getting to that one destination. And then if you have a, one day there, one night, then you can take that next flight. Most places are pretty easy to get to. So no, couldn't agree more. And yeah, great point just around going to those neighboring airports. We just, for the honeymoon, we drove to Atlanta. So because
Mhm.
Charlotte didn't have good options for Q suites on Qatar and we wanted to use points and miles, and it was like, okay, well, we'll make that drive if we're flying 25 hours, right? Because we want
Yeah.
to be able to sit in business class and be comfortable. So there's always different just strategies, but it's thinking about how can you get there and how can you be flexible if you do have that flexibility. So I love that answer.
Yeah, my uncle was looking to go to Bali. I know that you just returned from there, and he was, he couldn't get it out of his mind. And as he's looking for the flight to Bali, he can't find it under a certain price. And yet, there's a flight to Kuala Lumpur for, like, let's say $500 less. And as you just mentioned, AirAsia flights, all of these local regional flights around Southeast Asia, you can get for under $100,
Yeah.
easy. And so he could have just gone to Kuala Lumpur and then kind of connected from there. And so I really think that it's not something where people think of it in that way and they just see it. And immediately when you told me North Carolina, my first thought was Atlanta. My first
Yeah.
thought was that should be the place that he's checking
Yeah.
because that's the closest like major airport that I could think of to you. But even then, like you said, like I think you could have flown from Charlotte to New York if you found a great deal on Q Suites from New York, so keep that open.
Yeah. Yeah. No, great point. Was there anything when you were doing the 12 trips in 12 months? Just because some people, they're like, if they're thinking about quitting their job, if they're like, hey, you know what, I'm a digital nomad, I want to start traveling more and more. But how do you budget for that many trips in that little amount of time?
It was getting a second income stream, so I was able to have extra money coming in. I would say at least $1,000 a month that I was able to put towards each trip. And then from there, finding the cheap flight, so a $400 or less flight. You can find affordable accommodation anywhere that you go. I'm very strict on not staying at hostels, so I would just try to find the most budget basic accommodation of a room that still had AC. I'm kind of bougie to a certain extent. I will not share a room. I will not stay somewhere without AC. Like I am very, I do need to be comfortable.
I wouldn't call that bougie. I would just call that's your personal preference. I'm in the same boat. I've done the hostel, I did in my 20s doing I studied abroad. We had one time where we did it with 32 people in Amsterdam, and I was like, hell no.
Yeah,
There's no way ever. And then AC, yeah. If you've ever been to Europe in the summer, sometimes it's tough. So I'm right there with
it's
you.
oof, it is intense. Yeah, you just didn't mention heat stroke not too long ago.
Yeah,
Uh,
heat exhaustion. That was self-inflicted. We did a Muay Thai class and then we did a sauna, steam, and ice plunge after with the yeah. But that's that. Yeah,
That's
I
why I don't
was.
mess with those saunas.
What's
Honestly,
that?
I know everybody thinks they're so relaxing, but that's why I don't go to those saunas. I'm like, this is not feeling super great. I feel like I'm not
I
meant to be
go.
this hot.
I go in the States inside. The problem was is we did the Muay Thai, then we did the sauna, steam, cold plunge, and it also was like super hot in Thailand. So I think it was the trifecta that got us.
I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah. The IV was great though. If you quick tip, if you're ever in Thailand, and you're feeling sick, just get a grab. It costs us about $3. We got to the hospital, and between my wife and I, our IVs were 174 US dollars. We were in and out in 2.5 hours. They got us up, they put us in a bed, they gave us an IV. We were in and out. We felt a lot better the next day. So
Good.
a lot quicker, a lot cheaper. And we were like, okay, well, if we don't feel great in like 2 days, do we just come back and get another IV? It was that cheap and that easy.
Mhm. That's amazing. I mean, that's a great tip.
Yeah. Yeah. So lots of lessons learned there.
Like
Don't
all
Muay
travel.
Thai and don't sauna and steam room right after.
I maybe could have told you that, but I'm happy that you learned the lesson.
Yes. Well, we go to the gym every day and I go in the sauna every day, but the heat in Thailand is it's no joke. It's
Yeah,
not North Carolina heat.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think in general, that happens to me in a lot of places. I think I've had heat stroke. I think even just in North Carolina when I was doing the hang gliding on the
Mhm.
sand dunes, like the Wright brothers. You are in the middle of the sun and you are on a mound of sand and it's like the sun is beaming and there's no shade at all. Like, so it was intense. And I had a moment where I was like, oh, I think I'm going down, you guys.
Was that Kitty Hawk or was it Killed Devil
Yeah,
Hills? Okay, okay, cool.
they
I
had to
gotta,
call the golf cart over.
that's sweet. I gotta try that next time I go.
It was a lot of fun, I will say. Just like wear a cap or something and be aware of that, bring extra water, because it is hot, but it was really cool. And my level of adventure, because hang gliding like off of a mountain, never wouldn't do that. Are you crazy? But like this, you get air for like, 10 to 30 seconds. There's a soft sand generally underneath you, so it's not gonna end in a crash landing that's like really hurtful and
Yeah.
dangerous. Like you're in a soft kind of sand playing pad and it's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering where you were jumping off of because I'm like, I don't know if there's any mountains other than like little sand dunes. Okay.
The
Okay.
dunes, the sand dunes. So you're going just like the Wright brothers did, and that's how they tested their planes, and you're doing the same thing on the same kind of plane. It's pretty cool.
Okay. I'll have to try it. And I agree with you. I'm not jumping off a mountain with a hang gliding. That does not not me.
Me either, me either. I don't think it's not the bike thing, but they used a hang glider when they were testing out like the theories of flight initially. So that's where they went to go and figure out how do wings work? What do you need to do? They also watch birds a lot, and you can do great bird watching in North Carolina.
Good to know. Since we're on crazy things, what's your top bucket list item that you haven't done yet that you still need to do?
I have a list. I would say at the top of it still is the salt flats in Bolivia. So I again, because I have really weird things that I want to do and I get excited for. I want to go and take pictures that make it look like a virtual illusion, like if a toy T-Rex is eating me, or like if I'm walking into a Pringles can, because you can take all these really cool pictures there with the sand flats and the way that the images work. So I want to take really cool, like a photo shoot with inanimate objects that look larger than life, because that excites me. And I also would like to go to Vietnam. That's been on my list because I want to get a custom wardrobe made. you can have a whole custom wardrobe, men or women. Men can go and get three-piece suits made for, a quarter, a fraction of the price, but really nice quality materials, custom made to you. Just fashion that you can keep for, decades,
Yeah.
better than like the fast fashion. And really beautiful things and that are fitted to you. So I would love to do that. I wanted to go and like do a whole new wardrobe for me that I got custom made in Vietnam. So I have, yeah, my own little bucket list things that I,
Those are
reasons I
cool.
want to travel.
I like asking that because sometimes when not everyone has different interests, and that's one of my favorite
Mhm.
questions to ask guests because you get to learn a little bit more about you and what you like, and that's also good to know because my wife is like, "Hey, I need to get a new wardrobe," so maybe I just say, "Hey, I know we just got back, but why don't we go to Vietnam and we can go do that?"
Absolutely, you can double it up as a trip slash wardrobe visit. Yeah.
There we go. You learn something new every day. And then my last question I always like to ask people: what are you most excited for over the next year?
I'm actually gonna be getting a puppy.
Oh, let's go. What kind of
So
dog?
I have lived alone for the last 20 years, and so I would really love to start welcoming a new presence into my home. So I'm going to start with a dog. It's going to be a golden doodle because it has to be under 35 pounds for my condo, but I love golden retrievers. So I'm trying to get as close to a golden retriever as I can because they're like my dream dog. And then hopefully I'll also be able to work with a dog to be a therapy dog, be certified for different things. I have a friend who has dogs that do search and rescue, and they're like really like they have a lot of purpose. She really enjoys doing this with them. And so yeah, I'm getting a puppy. I don't know. We're gonna probably, since he's gonna be young, just like travel here locally around Florida for a bit. But he might be a great road trip buddy, might come with me traveling places. I already think for his first birthday, we're probably gonna go to the Plaza Hotel in New York, where they like have the whole doggy welcome package. I think that would be a great way for us to celebrate. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
I love it. That's awesome. We're dog people, so I'll have to send you a picture of when we got married. We had our 2-year-old English bulldog Morty in our wedding, and he had a tux, and he walked down the aisle, and it was funny. I was trying to hold myself up there, not laughing when we were up there, but yeah, we're big dog people, so I love that, and you'll
He
have to
sounds
share
precious.
pictures. What's that?
Lori sounds precious.
He is. He is. He's probably people like him more on social media than they like me. So
I am fully expecting that to be the case. I think my dog's going to be a bigger influencer than I am, and I'm okay with that.
yeah.
Uh,
Hey, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if they like the doodle or they like Morty, that's hey, I'll take it.
there actually is a big doodle community. Like I didn't realize how big it is. It's pretty big, and it's a weird community that's in silence because they're not accepted by the AKC, and they're not, the rescue community. So the doodles are in this weird, like middle community of people who actually really like them, but are like scared to talk about them, because they don't want to offend either group. And I think there's reasons for all types of dogs. Like there's reasons to get a purebred dog if you really like a particular breed, and there's reasons to get rescue dogs. There's so many rescue dogs out there. For me, with my condo requirements, with my
Mhm.
travel schedule, with wanting to get a dog that's potentially going to be trained to a higher level to be working at hospitals and libraries with a therapy dog. I wanted this particular, like I've done my research into that breed, but I think that there's value in all of them. And like you said, people like dogs.
Yeah,
People like things that make them happy, things that make them smile. I think travel's one thing and definitely dogs another. Together, I mean, winning
exactly.
combination.
What a way to end it. Well, Jen, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on. I know we've talked about a couple different areas online that you're at, but where would you suggest listeners go follow or find you?
So if you go to my site, jenonajetplane.com/start, and there you can find a couple different things. You'll find my list of 17 flight alert programs that I mentioned. You'll also find a link to my Substack account where I share paid travel opportunities if you're somebody who's interested in transitioning to doing this as a job, as an entrepreneurial venture. Yeah, and my books, links to my books are also there, which I'm sure you'll also have independently. But that's a great place to have everything in one place, jenonajetplane.com/start.
Awesome. Well, and listeners, we'll make sure to share those directly in the show notes. That way it's easy for you just to go in and click. But Jen, again, really appreciate you coming on. I had a lot of fun and excited to share this episode here in the near future. And listeners, if you like the episode, make sure you give us a follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star review if you think it deserves it. I think after this episode, it definitely does. And that way we can share it and reach more people and get people started traveling more. Until next week, we appreciate everyone tuning in.